You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do. Hello, People Centric leaders. Welcome to the next episode of People Centric Podcast, where today we're going to talk about gossip. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I was talking to so and so, and they said that you were just the nicest, and you provided so much great insight to them, and they were so grateful." And I was like, "Man, that's really cool." I wasn't around, and someone spoke well of me, which is very different for me. Usually when I'm not around, people are saying other stuff.
Right? That was about you?
It was about me. Yes.
Okay.
They clearly don't work with you. Go ahead.
I'm much nicer when I don't have to deal with all of the crazy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
But you'll see. You'll see.
So
anyway, I thought it was really nice that this person was talking about me behind my back in a good way. And it got me thinking, like, is there a case for good gossip? And how do we do that at work? And can we build that kind of culture where we just sort of talk well about others when they're not around? What do you guys think? Today we have Don Harkey with us. Hi, Don.
Good morning, afternoon, night, evening, wherever you are.
Oh, yeah. Did I say good morning?
No, I did. I think.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Did you?
I don't know now.
Rewind the tape.
Quit making it weird.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Thanks, Don. We also have Matt. Matt, you just spoke. Say hi to the listeners.
Hi, listeners. Welcome to the People Centric Podcast. I'm excited to talk about this topic of good gossip because I have nothing but kind things to say about all the people I work with regularly.
I don't know about that. We'll see. It's fine. And the actual ray of sunshine on our team, Philip Herzog.
Well, I good gossip about most people, especially these people. I've gotten in trouble before because my good gossip has turned generic because I used the word awesome early on in my tenure at People Centric. So I realized I've now adapted. So I think my good gossip is becoming more strategic and more meaningful. But no, I think that the dark things people say about you, Diana, on our team are usually not true. They're almost always wrong.
Stop it. Not everything can be good, Philip. Not everything can be good. If everything's good, then that's when it becomes
maybe
false, right?
That does lead me to sort of my first initial question. We do talk about gossip, and I kind of wanted to talk about what is gossip in general. And Don, you kind of have a good no gossip rule, things to say about gossip. I thought maybe you could set us up there.
Well, I stole this, and he's got a better description than this from our friend Gary Whitaker over at 417 Magazine. So shout out to them. They have what they call a no gossip policy. And basically the way they define it is just talking about someone when they're not there. You're trying to solve a problem or you're talking about somebody else. Matt and I are on a trip and we start talking about Diana and the problems Diana has, but Diana's not there. And we're complaining about Diana and no one's there that can solve the problem or talk to Diana about it. So like he even has, and there no gossip policy, just to show how far they go. And we've talked about this in other episodes, that like if you walked into Gary's office and I started saying, "Man, Diana is the worst," and I am just really, he'll say, "Wait a second, hold that thought," and then he'll call Diana and bring Diana in, and I'll say, "Okay, you were saying go," and make people like say it in front of each other, which is cool. It's kind of helped them to build the culture that they have there at 417 Magazine.
Yeah. So I like that concept of like, don't talk bad about people's back, but I thought it would be cool if today we kind of talked about how do you build a culture where people talk good behind someone's back? What do you think about it?
Yeah, and it's kind of a question. Like I could see if I walked into Gary's office again, or let's flip the script. And let's say I walked into Philip's office and I said, "Hey, Philip, I think Diana is awesome, and I just think she's great. And isn't she great? She helped me with this project. Da 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 da." There is some benefit to Philip saying, wait, hold on a second. Let's get Diana on the phone. She should hear this. There is some benefit to doing that. So does it have to still be gossip, or is it okay? Like, that's kind of where my mind went on that. Like, could we still keep it in front of everybody and be positive? Or is there benefit to not keeping it in front of everybody sometimes?
I don't know. And for those of you that are wondering, like, how scripted is this podcast? It's not scripted at all, right? We're literally hashing this out right now. And for some of us, I'm just golly, I didn't plan on being the other side of the coin for the positive gossip concept of the podcast. But for some of it, it's like, is the question like, how do we build a culture where people just kind of think kindly of each other? Or is it like, we should share, if somebody says something positive to me about somebody else on the team, I should share that immediately because, gosh, I know they would want to hear it too. And I can just imagine the other population of people. There's a certain population of people, and maybe I fall into that. I like to hear when I'm doing well. I like to hear if people enjoyed it. Don and I go speak all over the country. I love to get the survey results back. And you know why I asked for the survey results back? One, we use it for marketing. Two, because it's probably going to be positive. We've done this for a while, and it's just nice to be able to hear those positive things that people say about us behind our backs on an anonymous survey, so to speak. But I don't know. There kind of comes a point where it's like nice that they're saying that, but I don't know. Am I proactively trying to build a culture where people are talking positively and then we proactively share the positive things? This reminds me of, because, and the reason why I say that is because that sounds a little annoying, to be honest with you. And I could talk about that too. But we just did that team builder in Branson a couple of months ago. And I don't know, you guys may have done a podcast where you shared this, but we had to I use the word had to. We did an activity where we anonymously shared positive things about each other. And then not only did we share those comments with each other, still anonymously, although we were like, okay, that was me. Yeah, I said that. You got me. I said I like you. But then I think Don put it into a music song for all of us as well. And so we really got to hear and share the good stories that people thought around us. And my only thought to this is like, I love it. I think everybody likes to hear it. But maybe back to that point that we were talking about earlier, like not everything can be that. Is this saying we no longer have a license to give critical feedback or be critical of somebody, or like there's a time and a place? So maybe help me.
I was going to say yes.
Listeners.
I was going to say yes. You can't be critical, and then you said a music song, and I can't not call that out. Like what the heck is a music song?
Well, I was gonna say like country song or a rap song, but they were different genres. Like it was something that was set to music.
Yeah, I used Chat GPT before everybody thinks that I'm just incredibly talented. I am incredibly talented, but Matt, I cut a corner there. Matt, I liked that example because I was trying to flip through and look for the survey. I don't think I asked people to say something positive about the other people. I think I just said, what's it like working with each person?
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's be real though. What if you would have rolled into that event and be like, Philip's the worst, if you want my honest opinion. Frankly, I can't stand how he smiles. Like what if that was not the intent? Everybody knew. And this is, I don't know if it's a loaded question or whatever, but that's what you're going. You're trying to build unity, which is good. Trying to build positivity, which is good. And I love all of that. I love all of that. I just can't imagine a world though where that's all that there is, because then now it's disingenuous.
It did say some nice things. So I'm going back. It did say, so the question, and what are your favorite qualities and why do you enjoy working with that person? So
and I think it is important to point out that I filled one out for everybody except for Don. So I think that's Diana and I did not fill one out for Don, but we said nice things about everybody else on the team.
Sure. Yeah.
They did. And for the record on that, like what happened was I was collecting the survey results. So I thought it would be inappropriate for everybody to give me feedback directly on the survey because I'm the only one. Nobody could see who said what except for me. And so I thought that would be weird. But then because of the way I put the survey down, everybody was asked a question. Like Matt got a survey that says, hey, tell me about Matt. Because I put everybody's name on it. I didn't customize the survey for every individual person. And so everybody except for Matt and Diana, who I've worked with the longest on our team, decided to use that space to tell me what they liked about me, except for Matt and Diana. But I'm okay. I'm over it. I've had a good cry since then.
In I believe Matt and I's defense, we tell you to your face when we either like or don't like you.
So much.
It's not gossip. We just tell you.
gossip. We just tell you. But to that point, Matt, what you were saying of like, is that can we just not say bad things about each other? I think the thing is that a lot of times gossip, right, is just crappy. It's, oh, did you see Diana looks stupid today or whatever? Like she totally whiffed that meeting, but I'm not there to do anything about it. I think it's better if you would come to me and be like, you totally whiffed that meeting today. What the heck was going on? Right. And so I think it's instead of telling others the bad stuff or the good stuff, it's telling that person directly the bad stuff, right? So I think that's where the gossip thing comes into play and the critical feedback and all of that stuff. So to me, it's more of the critical stuff should be said face to face and not gossiped, but I think some of the good stuff can still be gossiped. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we should not have gossip. That's true. This kind of reminds me of a culture of accountability. If we do have the critical things, which I think, we talk about healthy cultures have healthy conflict. You're saying healthy conflict takes place face to face, not behind the back, right? And I think everybody totally agrees with that, right? We don't want to tear each other down behind the scenes. Bad teams probably tear each other down behind the scenes. I think that's maybe a trait of what a bad team might look like. But creating the environment to where we can have the transparently good, but also transparently difficult conversations together, man. Now I think we're onto something.
I think, what we're talking about. Well, I laughed, even this idea of gossip. Gossip just makes people, we all have feelings about it, clearly. Like this is already dicey territory. It's kind of spicy. It's kind of fun. I think what the substance, and you both are speaking to this of just wanting, I think we were saying like work relationships should have true substance behind them. So yeah, if you're in a place where it feels like a forced smile and you're like, wow, every time someone says something nice, I got to email the whole team or pull someone in, I love how Diana's kind of saying it's like a natural flex. There should be like muscle memory where if the person's not around, does your muscle memory lead you to then say the bad things? And I think that's kind of a measure I've had. I've worked in places where that was definitely the case. And, someone would leave the room and it would just come out. And you're like, oh, I thought that thing went well. And they're like, yeah, but so-and-so, culture of blame, the real person. But in public, it was like, oh, great, nice, wonderful person, which is why for me, I almost value feedback that's not public a lot more. Like I love a good public kudos, but really if it's one-on-one, that means so much more because you're not really playing a game at that point. You're like, oh, you're genuinely saying it to me and it's only impacting us. So yeah, I love this idea that if it's even hidden, like you don't even have to know I said it. There's great value there in kind of building trust. I think the other overflow, it's not just like you and the other person you're talking about, but as a team, if you start to see that or out in the community, people see that about your team, they actually talk about each other when no one else is around and they say cool, nice things. That's one of the things that stands out because a lot of people don't do that.
So I like this idea. It's got to be authentic. You can't just go around and say like, nice shirt, that's a whatever. Like that's not very good. And I also kind of like Matt's point before. I think Matt, kind of what you're saying is like, you can't really like say, okay, we're going to have a culture where everybody says something nice about everybody behind your back. Like that's not really like it's something like you as a boss might go drive, but it's certainly something as you as a leader inside your organization. We talk a lot about that leadership is influence and you are the team that you want to be. So like, I think of it this way, like lately I've been starting to walk a little bit more again in my neighborhood. And there's another neighborhood in Springfield called Roundtree where it's crazy. Like during the day, like there's lots of shops and there's places to get, there's beer pubs and taco joints and people will sit out on their porch and they'll just go and walk to other people's porches. And if you sit out there long enough, they'll just wave to each other. It's like this old style neighborhood of people just waving to each other. And it's really, really cool. And then I would go back home and I'd be like, in my neighborhood, like we go in our garage and like, we don't wave to each other. We don't say those things. Well, I would go for walks in my neighborhood and it just struck me like, what if I did start waving to people and saying hi to people and all that? And I started doing that and more people started doing that back. So like, it might be like what we're talking about is like positive gossip could be a tool as a frontline, as a leader in the organization. I'm not saying manager, just as a leader in the organization who wants to have a team that likes each other. That could be a good tool. It also strikes me as like the kind of the opposite way of saying, if you're, sometimes you train managers, they'll say something like, well, praise in public. What am I thinking? Praise in public.
Yell at him in private, I think is weird.
Yell at him in private.
Okay.
I was like looking for a better way.
Private or
Punish in private.
Punish.
Punish in private. That reminds me, Matt, I need to see you later offline for that, for everybody.
Neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. But it's funny, Don, that you mentioned that. By the way, that's why I live where I live, because that's what we do here. You just engage people. It's a way of life. Anyway, I do think I like this direction a little bit more. And one of the things that you're talking about, Don, too, is taking a proactive approach to it. So it's not necessarily coaching the environment to you be more that way. I think this is more of an accountability one as an individual's perspective of, man, it's not because we're encouraging you to pander to other people. It's because if you're able to put yourself in a positive mindset, and if you're able to speak positivity about other people at the same time, that's only going to reflect positively for you also. Does that make sense? Like there's an internal thing too. If I could put myself in a positive mindset, and if I can think, man, if I can work to just bless people or build people up, then internally that does a lot for myself and my I don't know, my mood or my outlook or whatever, that my brain, my mind. Don, you talked about, and we've talked about this for quite a while. Don had a great LinkedIn post this morning, and he was talking about, instead of listening to what I would normally listen to, and you can talk about that, I just put on some, music, some greatest hits or whatever, and I changed my mindset just a little bit and encouraged me to kind of get out of the norm. And maybe that's what this looks like for some of the individuals on here. If you're in the habit of just looking at the negative side of people, or that one person that you work with, that one person that you work with. And if you're in the mindset of just the negative side of what that looks like, really trying to reframe your mind and reset your mind to be able to say, you know what, let me just find something positive about that person and build up from there. And then you're probably more likely to see more positives later. And it's going to also feed you at the same time.
Yeah. And sort of to Philip's point, like he was saying, he worked in an environment where everyone did like the gross negative stuff behind the scenes. And then Don was saying like, oh, I just started doing positive things in my neighborhood and people started doing it back. I think if you be the positive one and you do say the nice thing, that kind of signals to others that you don't want to hear the crap stuff. Like you don't want to be the person that is like constantly negative about everybody. And I think that changes people around you also. You're changing your own mind, but you're also changing the people around you as you go.
That reminds me, how often have we heard this? And it seems like it's been a while, but this reminds me of one of the most maybe impactful things early on that I got from Don. And there's been several impactful things but early on, I remember because, you have those people who work with organizations, you have those people that come to you and be like, listen, I'm only saying this because people keep coming to me to say this. Like, listen, they keep coming to me, approaching me. They're frustrated about that. And one of those things that I kind of grabbed a hold of early on, one of those questions that Don would ask was, why do you think people are so comfortable coming to you with the negative things? Right? Because they know that you're absorbing it, and you are, in turn putting that out too. Maybe don't be the person that's that everyone's comfortable coming to with the negative things. And I think that's a good perspective. I didn't mean to step on your toes, Don. Go ahead.
No, that's a great point that Diana made. I think that if you could set the tone and you can shut that down, and Matt too. Matt then try to steal. Afterwards, Matt was signaling me like, I'm the one that just said that. No, Diana said it, and then you just said it a different way, and now I'm just complimenting Diana. That's how that worked. I'm sorry, Matt. We'll talk offline about that part of it. He just shut off his screen now. Now we can't see him. Took his ball and went home. No, I lost my train of thought from the original thought I was going to put out there, to be honest with all of you. So we have too much visually going on in front of us now.
Well, I do think it's an internal thing. I do think it's an internal digestive thing of what I choose to look and how I choose to look at the people and the surrounding outside. Sometimes, especially in the day and age that we live in now, we treat other people based off what we're receiving. I think it takes a special person to be able to receive negativity but produce positivity at the same time, right? I think it takes a special person to be able to go, man, I'm hearing that, but I'm choosing to not engage that. I'm choosing to go the other way. Again, I know there's a lot of people listening that are going like, well, when do I get an opportunity to be negative and voice my frustrations? Or am I just supposed to just see the rainbows and sunshine and everything? No. I get that. I think there's a time and a place for that, but I think also the part of the idea of that is that we're also handling those proactively. And studies show that if we're able to conflict resolution, by the way, through negative interaction, then the relationship's going to be even stronger past that point too. So there's a positive spin that you could put on that too. But again, I think it's the internal, how you're internally processing. What are you hoping to put out with no expectation of returning, receiving anything back? But it's your brand. It's how you want to outlook and treat people.
I like that. I think, I think that gravity just kind of pulls us into only focusing on negatives. There's a health system we work with, a group of a lot of different clinics, and I've started at not every call, but sometimes I'll say, what is an awesome thing that's happened lately? Like, what is a cool thing? You're literally working with lives and blood and guts and all these things I can't do. So it's as much just for me. I want to know, like, how's it going? What's a cool thing? And the very first time someone had this really cool story, they saved a life, like this really compelling story. But after that, people just sit there and they're like, awesome. It's healthcare. Nothing is interesting. But then they were also tasked to go and create engagement with their team. And no one had really great things to say. No one had bad things to say either. But it's kind of this idea like you are very disengaged from your own work. You're literally working with people's lives and bodies. And there's not like this energy here. So there's a quote I came across recently that just kind of, I think, curtails to a lot of what we're saying, applies to what we're saying, not curtails. Anyway, the right words. So this is it. The quote goes this way. You cannot give what you do not possess. What you do is important, but who you are is even more important. And the state you are in is the state that you give to others. And I think to Matt's example of that person, if you're just like a negative sponge and you're soaking it up, like that's what you do continue to give to others. And if it's the idea of like, what are you looking for in others? If it's only the bad, you're going to keep doing that too. So have a hard conversation as well, and then also praise people in a way that's meaningful and true.
Yeah, so I know that we as humans like levers, like, right. So if we're inside of our brain, we have these levers and we have these little knobs that you can find. We like to go like, I'm going to go all in. And so sometimes people listening to our podcast, they know if you're talking about being positive and positive gossip, then it's like, okay, I'm going to nothing but positive. I'm only going to say good things about other people. That is absolutely not what we're saying. And Philip, I like what you said about, because you said, you're good. You're a good person. But when we talk about like giving feedback, like we have to trust the feedback that we're giving and how we give it, right? We talk about that a lot. If I've got feedback for somebody that's negative, I need to give it to that person, not around them. That's what we talk about. That's the bad thing about gossip. But if I have positive feedback about that person, also publicly saying so around other people does change a tone. It creates a habit for other people to think differently about how they have those side conversations. And then if you're giving feedback, just to review something, because Matt, you talked about this earlier, saying going back to the accountability conversations, we often talk about if you're going to the negative side, you talk about there's accountability and blame. I think that also applies to the positive side. And the difference between accountability and blame, our definition is that blame, you're talking about the person. Accountability, you're talking about the thing the person did. And those are very different. If I go to Philip, just like you just said, and I say, Philip, you are horrible. That hits him at his being. Like that's challenging a fundamental truth that we believe in, is that you're worthy. And that's going against that truth, is saying like, I'm basically telling him like, you're not worthy for this. But if I go to Philip and say, hey, that presentation you gave didn't quite work as well as we thought it would, now let's talk about how we can make that better. Suddenly now, okay, we're on the same team now. It's not changing. It's not that we have to change somebody. It's that we're working together for it. I think the same thing might be true for positivity. And I haven't thought about this until Diana brought up this topic, is if I go to Diana and I say, Diana, you're awesome. I'm sorry, Philip, I shouldn't have changed persons and said like Philip's awful, Diana's. I'll stay with Philip. I'll stay with Philip. Diana, you are awesome. Philip, you're awesome. Philip, you're great. Philip, you're fantastic. And I've seen managers give that kind of feedback before and even say it publicly. That it's nice and people feel good about it, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's even better if I say, Philip, I saw you do that thing and that really helped that client and that really did this. If I'm telling you the thing that you did, it's not just about you. I think that's more meaningful feedback. It goes back to the present, like when we do presentations, and Matt said, I get frustrated when we get feedback on a conference and we get all the highest ratings, but no few comments. It's like that doesn't help you. Or if the comments are just well done, great job, all that stuff. It's nice to read that and go like, okay, that's cool. But I really like when they go through and say, I really took this concept home with me and I really thought that I was going to have apply this. And I would probably even prefer to get a negative comment that was specific about a thing that we did that was helpful to improve the presentation than to get all just positive comments that were just vague about things. So I've never thought about it on the positive side. And Diana, frankly, you were the last person I thought would bring that to that side of things.
I know. I know.
Every once in a while, man. Yeah. I
Maybe
think
I
it,
was I like your idea, Don, too, of yeah, I don't know. It's cool how you frame that, where the positives aren't just person based, like, oh, you're just really good at this. Good for you. We know you can handle it because you're this person. Great job. And there's actually someone in Springfield, one of my mentors, who, when you talk to anyone else in Springfield, they all have the same story with this person, and it's Jim Anderson. And I had kind of have this thing with literally in 1 week, two different events I was at, people on stage were sharing really vulnerable personal stories. And they brought up a few different people that made a difference in their life, and Jim Anderson was one of them. And when that happens, I'll just take like a quick picture and I'll shoot at him to be like, hey, this thing happened. You know, you weren't here, but they said this when they started this organization, or they were trying to build this company, or they whatever. They mentioned it. Thanks for doing that. That's pretty cool to learn about, or something like that, which again kind of goes to Diana's earlier point where you don't have to do it every time. But even when Diana was telling that story of, oh, hey, someone said this thing about you, it was like, oh my gosh, you kind of just naturally light up anyway. Don, to your point, when it's specific, because then it actually does mean something. And it's not just you're a great person
well,
statement.
you just practiced some positive gossip just now, right? Jim Anderson's not on this call. Side note, when you started describing him, you didn't go into any detail at all. And I thought I knew who you're talking about, and I was absolutely right. And my feeling right now in the moment about Springfield in general is like pretty good when I think about like a Jim Anderson or somebody like that who's just really positive and's made a really good impact on the community. So you're right. It makes you feel really good about the team. The downside about it, maybe, Diana, going back to your original question of like, is it positive? Yes, it has a positive impact on the team and the culture, but Jim Anderson doesn't know to continue doing what he's doing. So like we might be missing a little bit of an opportunity. That doesn't mean that like every positive comment needs to go around to the person eventually. But I was sitting here thinking like maybe we should have Jim over and like say, hey, we were talking about you. So yeah, good topic.
Does anyone have any final takeaways on this wonderful topic of good gossip? My takeaway is that I'm an amazing person, and my affirmations for myself are not as good as the anonymous affirmation of others that are then brought to my attention. No, I like that Matt shared the example earlier when we had our team retreat. And there's these different stories and songs that Don compiled through AI, so even robots were involved in our affirmations. But it was cool just kind of learning different things that people thought about us, and a lot of the times there were different themes, which was really unique too. But in making this really meaningful and practical, I think maybe some of my best advice would be, if you can say something good about one team member this week when they're not around, like that's an easy start, right? Just like do it once a week. If it's once a week, that can build a habit, but really kind of building that eyesight to look at the strengths of those around you and celebrate them even if they're not there with you.
Yeah, let me riff on that one real quick, Philip, and say, my takeaway from some of that is like, if you hear the negative gossip, a good way to combat that might be, if you don't want to just absolutely just hit it head on, is to say something positive about the person that they're talking about. Is to just kind of throw it the other
That's
direction
really good too. I
instead
like
of
that.
saying like, don't do that. Like, let's flip it around and let's say something really good about that person. Well, they are pretty good. Actually, they are fantastic. Just don't use the word actually. We learned that actually means very different things to different generations of people. Yeah. Matt, what do you think?
I was going to say, this might come as a surprise to you, but I'm going to agree with what Philip, one of my takeaways from this is Philip was talking about, not that I'm agreeing with Philip, but the thing I'm about to agree with Philip on. Anyway, Philip said it feels more genuine whenever it's taken kind of offline as an individual, instead of just like, hey, everybody, I just wanted to point out group chat, water, we have a water cooler. Hey, water cooler, so-and-so did something awesome. This is amazing. And I loved it, which I get it, that, okay, you want the public, and sure, that feels good too, but it feels much more genuine whenever that person gets a hold of you and says, man, I really appreciated this. This was awesome. I love how you did this. Instead of like, hey, I'm just going to pin a rose on your nose and say, good job. This person did their job at a high level today, and we just appreciate it. It just feels a little bit more genuine when it's taken offline like that. So that's going to be my takeaway.
That's awesome. So Diana, are you in a spot? Diana is in the middle of a construction zone in her house. And so I'm just going to need her to like nod or shake her head of like, are you able to come back on and give us some takeaways?
Yeah, a few seconds ago, it was like literal jackhammers. So I was like, I can't do this for a minute. But they seem to have stopped for a second. Yeah, I really think that this has just sort of helped me reframe how I think about things a little bit. So will I always give the feedback privately? No. Will I always give positive stuff in public? No. I think it's just I'm going to do a little bit of both more readily and start my brain in a positive place instead of a negative place. And I think when you do that with any situation, I think it tends to filter to others. The other thing is that in our culture today, we have things like, oh, I love the tea and do it for the plot. And I think those things tend to lead you toward drama. And I'm going to kind of say like, okay, my plot is going to be a Hallmark movie, not a Tarantino. My tea is going to be sweet iced tea and not hot, bitter tea, right? Like I'm just going to change the narrative there a little bit.
Well said. Well said. I love that. That was nice. That was nice. Fun little reminder for everybody today. You are what you say and you make, and it'll change your mindset. It'll change your team. It'll change your culture. We often talk about, one of our truths is that everyone is a leader. You're a leader. You influence people on a day-to-day basis, and you get to choose what kind of leader you want to be. So as Matt likes to say, go out there and lead them well. Lead them well. Be the example for other people, and you'll be surprised at what kind of and do it by example. Don't go out by judging how other people are not doing it right. Go out by doing it right yourself and showing everybody the right way. And that is, I think, putting people at the center of your organization by using your power to align your team, which is very much people centric. So thanks everybody for joining us on this week's podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.